Good morning, everyone. Hi from the Ecamm Test Studio. We're so happy you're hanging out with us here today, whether it is live with us right now or whether you're catching it on the replay later. Definitely throw your questions in. We're pretty good about following up later and answering them all. And we usually turn these kinds of segments into blog posts on our blog, ecamm.com/blog, if you want to read along or grab any links that we talk about today. It looks like we have a couple people joining us. Excuse me. Parker's here. We have Silver Lining Home Place. Thanks so much for hanging out. And I'm so excited that we have Junaid with us today.
Hey, Katie.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. I
So
am
excited to be here.
so excited to be sort of kind of in your studio space so that we can ask all of the questions and learn a lot. Before we jump super into it, I was saying to you right before we joined live today that I'm down to one camera. You were saying that you have 6. I'm going to show
got like
everyone
6
where
cameras.
our other camera went off to. I have one at home, and then we had a face cam that was straight ahead that kind of gave a cool overview of the studio space. But here's where it is right now. For those of
Hanging out
you who don't know, that is Spot the dog robot, and he lives down the hall at Code and Circuit, which is Ken owns a coding school, a kids coding school, so he's having fun over there. But welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna grab my coffee. Give me 1 second. Over to you, Junaid, to give an introduction.
Hey guys, Hey Katie, thanks for letting me jump on and share my little journey of my studio. Super excited to be here. I want to say hi to all the amazing folks that are going to be here now and coming in the future. It's been such an amazing journey. So I am a user experience designer by profession, but I have a passion for photography, passion for cameras, passion for video creation. And with this beautiful experience that we had where we just get to spend a ton of time at home, I got to build up my studio. It was like the pandemic was crazy, but I got lucky enough to be working from home. I was like, hey, I'm spending more time here. Let's build this out. But before because I was commuting, I just had the same room,
Yeah.
but it wasn't prepped for live streaming or Zoom calls.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point and a really common thing that a lot of people experienced as it started to get more realistic, that people would be spending a lot more time at home and certainly a ton more time on video than anyone ever experienced before. It went
Oh
from
yeah.
being like, maybe you had your laptop on your kitchen table or at your desk at home working here and there to like, oh man, now I need, a camera, I need a better microphone, I got to figure out lighting, how much space do I actually have, kind of all of these different
Hmm.
questions. And I think a lot of people, particularly Ecamm users, are now at a phase where they may have some level of gear, or some kind of setup, either, at their home studio or maybe a remote studio or maybe even in an office space like I'm coming to now.
Yeah.
But as the holidays are approaching, I know everyone's kind of thinking through like, what might I be missing? What maybe is a good time to upgrade something? So yeah, I'm super excited to kind of hear your story and your evolution as you started from like just a work from home space into what is now a pretty awesome space. And hopefully you can give us a little bit of a tour while you're at it.
Absolutely. So what happened was, I was watching Pat Flynn, as most of us, on YouTube,
Yep.
streaming every single day, and I was like, I was just blown away by the level of engagement he had, and then the way he was just talking and just pressing buttons and everything was just happening. And I was like, this is so cool. So I kept watching every day, and then finally he had a blog post where it's like, hey, this is what's in my studio, and I'm
Yeah.
looking around my studio and my cabinets over here because I've been doing video for the past decade and a half,
Yeah.
and I've got these DSLR cameras sitting in the closet, just not collecting dust because they're in
Yeah.
dust-proof boxes.
I totally
I was
was
like,
guilty
hey,
of the same thing.
I
Yeah,
was
you're
like,
like,
I have this gear. Why don't I just take it out? So I
yeah.
started messing around, started putting this together, and around the same time, I also ran into Stephanie Liu,
Mhm.
our good friend Luria,
Yep.
and she had the live streaming pros. I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool. Like she's worked with all these people, she's putting all this stuff together. Maybe I can do some of that. And then so I started putting this together. And my goal was, okay, once I have the studio, I can actually teach some courses, create content.
Yeah.
But it never occurred to me to be teaching people how to set up their studios also, which is like,
There's a
really?
big
That's something
need.
people want from me?
Yeah, for sure. It I feel like it's one of those things, and I've said this a couple of times in my journey into our studio
Yeah.
space here, that there's all these things that feel obvious. You're like, okay, okay, I'm gonna need a camera, I'm gonna need a microphone, I gotta figure out some sort of lighting. But then there's all these things that are not all that obvious, or things that like
Hmm.
you think you have a grasp on or understand, and then you realize that it's a lot more complicated than it seems, or maybe you're a little bit in over your head. Even just cameras, I
Yeah.
mean, I've taken photography classes. I've had cameras, DSLRs, and then now mirrorless cameras
Hmm.
that are just kind of for fun or as a hobby, or something that I've played with in the past. But it is a very different, it's kind of a different thought process that goes into like how you're actually going to use that camera for creating video or for live
Yeah.
streaming. And even that is a bit of a pain point as you kind of think through, like, okay, I got this camera. Someone told me to get it, or maybe I had it, like you said. Like, where
Hmm.
does it go? How do I remove any of the kind of dirty HTML? Like, how do I get it to have a clean feed out so that I can use
Yeah.
it for video? All of those kinds of things. So I think it's great that you're kind of in this space now and helping people get up and running, because I think as we're kind of hopefully coming a little bit out of this pandemic, people are at all different levels, and I think
Yeah.
people have made all different investments and are trying to still figure out exactly the best use for the gear they have, what they may be missing, how to use some of the stuff that they impulse bought at one point or another and are like, oh, how do I get comfortable with it? So yeah, no, I
Absolutely.
think it's huge, hugely important. So you started with what you have. You started with
I
camera.
started with what I
You have
have,
them.
right? So, but even before I started setting up the studio 2 years ago, I was like, hey, I had a little ebook created on how to mobile video production on your iPhone. So I had the ebook. I was like, okay, let me make this into a course. So I looked around in my basement. All I saw was yellow walls, and I saw people on LinkedIn were using vinyl backdrops. Like, okay, maybe that could be something.
Yeah.
So I went and bought this vinyl backdrop, put it up in my basement, set up all the cameras. Took me about 2.5 hours. And it's like after work, my kids come to me and like, Dad, can you stop playing and feed us? I'm like, okay, that's the dad life, right? You never have enough time.
Nope.
I'm like, okay, so maybe I'll come back tomorrow and do this.
Yeah.
So the next day, same thing, right? I set everything up. Now I hit record. I'm like, okay, I know exactly what I'm gonna say. Well, I was focusing on all the tech part of things. But as soon
Hmm.
as I hit the record button, I'm standing in the front of the camera and I'm like, okay, in this video, uh,
I look great.
I look great, but I don't know what to say. I don't know that I don't have a story to tell. I don't
Yeah.
have like where do I even start? Right? So that stumped me. I was like, wow, this is more than just gear. This is more than just setting up cameras and
Yeah.
lights and audio. And that came natural to me because I had been doing that. I've been behind the camera. But you need a totally different soft skill, different type of um, mentality when you're in front of the camera because now not only you're essentially public speaking, right? It's a totally different thing that we don't even realize.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I tell people is, dude, start talking to yourself, even if it has to be a microphone in the car. Just talk to yourself, record it, and then you'll get more comfortable on how to have a conversation with
Yeah.
yourself or whatever what have you. And that's what I had done in 2018 when I started my podcast, Hacks and Hobbies. I was
Yep.
just talking to myself, recording about talking about beekeeping in my
Uh-huh.
car
I love
while I'm commuting back and forth from work.
it. I'm gonna have to definitely pass that podcast along to my husband because he's been wanting to start beekeeping for forever in our backyard.
Oh
We're
my god,
we're
that's
already
so
keeping
awesome.
chickens and like virtually every other animal and children and the whole shebang. So I feel like bees, why not? Let's get on board. Um,
Well, to tell you it's one thing, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were saying about how they just rebuilt their second coop
that's what we
for the
need to do.
chickens.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, I want to do chicken. So I started looking up on my county website, and they're like, well, if you have less than 2 acre land, then you
Yep.
need to submit a permit.
Yep. That's what we had to do. Yep.
And they're talking about, okay, how the poop, how the excrements of
Yep.
the chicken, don't make sure they don't go into the. I'm like, okay, this is way too much work than I signed up for. Beekeeping is much easier.
Oh, there you go. There you go, everyone. So Katie can get into beekeeping. I'm like slightly terrified of bees. This I feel like relates a lot actually back to studios, guys. So hang on a second because
Hmm.
I'm going to bring it full circle. I'm fairly terrified of bees, and yet the idea of it is like absolutely fantastic. And I feel like
Hmm.
this was totally my feeling in the same way about setting up a studio, getting started, and like you said, I think trying to just force yourself to do it. I know we've
Yeah,
said this a ton in a lot of different videos, but honestly, when I'm approaching anything, I mean, even this conversation today, immediately my mind is like, okay, how's it going to look? Like at what time is going to make the most amount of sense? What are my graphics going to look like? Is it on brand enough? All of these kinds of questions go through my head. And I end up just literally closing the computer and going back to like a whiteboard or a notebook and thinking through, okay, what are the questions that I know the Ecamm fam has?
yeah,
What are the questions I know I have? How can the content be helpful? What are the kinds of things that we really want to get out of this? How might we be able to use this video down the road to be able to help people who haven't even heard of Ecamm yet or haven't even started setting
yeah,
up their studios? So I think it's super important. And like any new thing that you're getting into, and Doc hates when we say this word, but it is going to be a little bit overwhelming. It's going to feel
yes,
really big, and you're going to have to figure out, whether you're a parent or this is a side hustle or this is your full-time thing, you're going to have to do blocks of time to kind of think it through and approach it, one step at a time, and try really
yeah,
hard not to let yourself, lose track of the big picture, because it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to look perfect. Like you could look
right,
perfect and then not really know what to say. So,
yeah,
you have to
exactly,
find that balancing act
yeah,
along the way. So let's talk a little bit about your like actual physical space, because one thing that I love about you and how you kind of approach things is that you really think kind of big picture about it. So it's more than just kind of like what cameras do I need, what microphones do I,
right,
all the like physical pieces of gear, but you're actually thinking about like where everything is laid out in the space. You're kind of building a roadmap for that. How do
yeah.
folks get started? So it's like we have like a home office space at home. It's got, the usual like windows. It could be a spare bedroom. How do people, first approach how to build that into a cool, studio space that they would feel comfortable in and can be, actively creating content in?
Absolutely. So the first thing that you want to look at, okay, what room do I have available?
Mm-hmm.
Where can I, you know, allocate a space in my house that's going to enable me to, okay, dedicate time or energy and space?
Yeah.
Because the way I look at a home studio is similar to the way we look at the rest of our home. We have our living room, we have our dining room, we set up these rooms so they're ready to use,
Ready to
right?
go. Yeah. Huge.
When somebody comes into your house, you're not gonna be like, "Oh, let me unfold these chairs so we can sit down at the dining
Let me just
table."
move this sofa around.
Yeah, let's just
Yeah.
move stuff around so
Yeah.
so we want to remove friction as much as possible. So when I'm setting up a studio, when I'm looking at space, I'll look at all those aspects and I'm like, okay, how can we you make this space so it's usable for multiple purposes?
Mm-hmm.
Because here I have another desk back here. I've got plenty of space behind me so my kids can come. I've got some swings set up
There's a snack
overhang, to
station.
hang.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can come swing. They can hang out at dad's office.
Yeah.
But then it's also doubles as a studio. It also doubles as my workspace where I do my daily work.
Yep.
So I look at it from that perspective. Yes, not everybody is going to have a dedicated room like I do. Yes, you might have to, use your living room or your family room or your,
Yep.
but again, have those things in mind. Like, okay, figure out where the light's falling in your room. Where are the openings and entrances? Where are people going to be walking in and out? So look at those things so that you're well prepared, and you're aware of what the camera is going to see, what you're going to see, right? Because people want to see you, and people want to see what's behind you, so
Yeah.
they can connect kind of a dot. Okay, this guy loves a ton of Star Wars figures back here, so there's going to be a personalization. There's going to be
Yep.
some connection that's immediately like, I see that Apple Mac back there in your
Mhm.
background. I know exactly what to talk about because we have that common interest. You got a joystick back there, I think. So it connects people immediately, and then you're more comfortable, you're more approachable. So I'll start with those things, right? How big
Yeah.
is your room?
How big?
Where's the
Yeah.
windows and stuff?
Do you actually draw it out? Like, do you like sketch out what the space is going to look like and be like, okay, I think we're going to put, so you said you have multiple cameras. You're going to put like one camera here, one
Yes.
camera here. Are you a fan of sketching it all out and then gaffer's tape so that you know
Absolutely.
where
So
everything is going?
the first thing I asked my clients or the friends that I'm helping, like, hey, give me the dimensions of your room, give
Yep.
me where the windows are, give me a couple of photos, and then what I do is I create them in 3D.
Awesome.
I'll bring them in a home design and application,
Yep.
lay out the entire room,
Yep.
and then based on the furniture that it showed me, I'll basically stage up the entire room and
I love
then walk around this room using a virtual camera.
Oh, that's
It's
so
pretty
neat.
amazing.
Yeah, I think, as you start kind of filling that space and getting a feel for it, it's always so funny to me because, what the camera's seeing and what you're all seeing is really different than what the whole space looks like. We have here
Exactly.
a pretty big space, and so when I was talking with Doc and we were kind of figuring out like how we wanted everything to go, I kept saying to him, and even sending in like measurements and being like, it's a really big space. It's a really big open space. There's lots of windows. There's lots of natural
Mhm.
light. But then what ended up happening is that because this wall behind me was our only like usable wall, easy wall for us to kind of build a set behind or against,
Yeah.
we're actually like pretty like hobbled into this corner. So it actually ended up being a much smaller space for live streaming or for video content than
Yeah.
the full size of the room. So then, we kind of ended up with this probably one or two sizes too big for what we need light, which is fine because this is a test studio. But those kinds of considerations, like, it kind of came out of back and forth conversation, and a little bit
Yeah.
because Doc wasn't physically present with us in the studio. So he was, taking my photos and kind of walking through the entire process. So yeah, I think actually getting out your tape measure, measuring the whole space, marking like where the windows are, being able to really
Yeah.
like think through that carefully is going to be a really great starting point. And then I would imagine your next step from there is figuring out the actual positioning of the gear, what gear you have or what gear you want to bring,
Yep.
positioning of it. How do you approach that?
Yep. So figure out. So once we have the room dimensions, we can figure out. Okay, if we place a camera over here, how much field of view is
Mm-hmm.
each lens going to provide us? Because depending on the lens that we pick, it has a different field of view, right?
Yep.
Different degrees. So a 16 millimeter lens or a 24 on a full frame would give you almost like a 70 degrees. I don't even remember these numbers because it's so on and off.
It's math
But
time.
it's math time, right? It's 100% mathematic because that tells you, okay, so if you put let's say a 60 millimeter lens, that's going to give you 33 degrees versus a 35 millimeter would give you 54, and a 40 would give you 43. So again, there's different numbers. So based on those numbers, I'll place these virtual cameras in the room. So okay, this is let's say we set up this space for you, and based on what lens you have, this is what it's going to look like
Awesome.
at 10-foot level or 8-foot level.
Yeah.
And then you can then decide, okay, this is the lens I need to purchase. This is the camera that I need to purchase, so it matches up.
Yeah, and so I can't stress this enough because I definitely was guilty of this as well. So you can raise your hand awkwardly with me out there if you are guilty of this, but it's like you watch all of the videos from Luria and Stephanie and Doc and Diana and all these amazing content creators out there, and and they're like, I'm using the Sony EV10, or it's the, or they're like ZVE10 or
Mm-hmm.
the Sony A6400, or I love this Nikon or Canon, etc. And I'm just like, all right, we need that thing. I'm gonna
Writing all
order
this stuff
that.
down. Yeah.
I'm gonna order that and get that. And I come from a content marketing background, so I should know better. I should know better to start with the content and really think through like what am I actually creating? Because if
Mm-hmm.
if my main focus is my podcast and I'm adding a video element, I probably don't need the most
Don't need
expensive
all that.
camera. I may not need the same look and feel that some of these content creators have, or if I'm doing an interview show, or if I'm doing, a crafting demo, or if I'm outside tending to my chickens or my bees, like
Yeah,
all of those content, that's all going to mean something really different for everyone. So I think that's great.
absolutely.
Really helping people to visualize what those shots are going to look like, so that you can really force them to be thinking through like, what shots do I need? How many cameras
Right.
do I need? Because it is possible to grow, right? So you can
It
start
is.
with like
You start at zero. I mean, when you get into cycling, you're not gonna go buy the $10,000 bike. No way. You're gonna go buy a used bike, get good at riding it.
yeah,
Maybe you even get a Peloton, right? It
yeah,
all depends on which level you want to come in.
yeah.
Just like when you started your chicken coop, you didn't go buy the biggest chicken coop. You started with one chicken, so let's start with one camera. Let's call our cameras chickens from
Oh
now
yeah,
on.
there we go. Yeah, all right, everyone, fellow chicken keepers, join me. Yeah, I did it all backwards because that's how I like to roll. I like designed out with my engineer husband and built like and planned out this like crazy ornate amazing coop, and I submitted my plans to the building inspector to
County.
like
Uh-huh.
to verify, and they were like, great, this looks awesome. And then we started building it, and of course I'm like an impulse buy person, so I went out and got my chickens and was raising them from chicks inside as we were building this thing, and everything fell apart. Like the time, we ran completely out of time, the chickens were like getting too big. We had all
Oh my
this stuff,
god.
and so we ended up having to run out and buy like a kit chicken coop. And that is what we have been using for the last little bit. And we're just now at the point where we're going to like go back now and redesign the coop that we've always wanted to have.
Yeah.
So join me in my failures of like, we bought all of the stuff to do all of the right things and get started. And then we learned along the way that wasn't going to
Hmm.
work out. It wasn't exactly what we wanted or needed at the time anyway, because we were just starting
Yeah.
out. And now we're at a point where we've been in this particular coop for long enough that we know what's working and not working. It's the same thing with your gear.
Yeah.
Start with
You're
something
gonna go.
simple. Figure it out. All right, I'm just gonna shoot across to see if there's any questions as we're going through, but I'd love to. It's so true. I had a lot of gear collecting dust that I pulled out during the pandemic. Absolutely. Me too. I
Hey,
definitely got out my Nikon, which I hadn't used in a while, and kind of worked my way through some of that, and got some advice on lighting. Awesome. You're doing 100 days of live? That is
that's
amazing.
amazing. That is so
Congratulations.
amazing.
We're about to enter Vlogmas, so you definitely should join us in kind of creating videos every day for the month of December. It's a fun challenge. Kind of forces you to really get
It
thinking.
does, right?
All
Come up with
right.
ideas.
I'm going to shoot over to just you, but I'd love for you to show us a little bit of like what your studio looks like, some of the different camera angles. I think it'll help us get a really good feel of like what's possible.
All right, so this is my main screen. Let me put up my name tag. Why not, right? I'm using, of course, Ecamm Live virtual camera, so I can switch between multiple cameras.
You
Switch
have the
between.
power.
But this first one, I'm using a A10 mini, so I can bring in multiple camera angles. And my camera 2 is not having a good day, but I'll show you off my rear camera that shows basically everything that's happening over here.
So
Got a
cool.
secondary monitor, I've got a teleprompter, lighting, and a big TV over here, and my main widescreen monitor that I use for all the work that I do. Super fun. See if number 2 wants to come back up. Nope, doesn't want to come back up yet now. I took this out for a couple of times, and it working on that, so it's all good.
That's all good.
But that's what's happening. So I'm going to show you the mobile camera. Again, this is connected to my smartphone over here, so then I can move it around and show you guys again what all is happening. So this monitor, this monitor are basically synced, so I can see whatever I'm putting up on my teleprompter on the big monitor, and then when I'm not using the teleprompter, I can still use the big monitor to throw up different windows. My TV also does the same thing, has the same window going on. And if back here you can see the rest, you can probably see an iPad up
Yeah.
there on on top that shows you the behind the scenes. And that's basically it. I've got most of the things mounted on the ceiling, so it takes off like there's no tripods and whatnot stuff on the ground,
Yeah.
so it makes it super easy. Of course, I also have an overhead camera, so when I'm showing off the things or on Amazon Live, I can do unboxing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And this, I've got the Shure MV7, but I also recently just added the Rode mobile
Oh, cool.
device, so then I can just move this microphone out of the way and still have conversations with people. And here's my behind the scene camera that sees,
Mhm.
again, I'm just showing you all that's in here.
All
So
the
this is
angles. Yeah.
all the angles. So this camera is basically going back and forth on a slider, and I'm not sure why the power is cutting out on that one. Yeah, it's still out. But regardless, that's a really cool look because you get to see this wooden wall that's behind me that I also built. Just adds for a nice uh, look around. My favorite thing that I've recently discovered, or a lot of times you want to write on top of your face, right? I don't know if
It's
you do,
true.
but
All the time.
I recently added an iPad so that I can easily
Do
write stuff.
whiteboarding. Yeah.
Whiteboarding. What?
Oh, it's so fun. Okay, stop it. Your writing is like way better than mine.
Oh, really? Is it?
Mine always
I'm
looks
just
absolutely terrible. That's amazing.
um. And then, so what are the 5 tips I've got? Right. So number one, you want to have a captivating story. It's not even about cameras. The
Yeah.
5 tips of my so what I talk about is let me see if I can bring another. That's fine. I won't think about it. But my 5 tips to captivating video is or a remarkable video is number one, you gotta have a captivating story. And what's funny is that we all have a really good story. We just have a really awesome conversation on all the tips that we got one through. And
Hmm.
that's a story in itself. And
Yep.
having that captivating story really connects with people that are then going to be watching your video, watching your content, and learning from you.
Yep.
um, it also builds authority and credibility. So that's the number one thing: captivating story. Number two thing that I talk about is intentional lighting. We've obviously we spend a ton of time in our studio for intentional lighting. Where's the light falling? Where's the light coming from? In the
Yep.
window, doors. So making sure that we have intentional lighting. And then we talk about audio, because
Hmm.
audio is more important than video. If people can't hear you, you can look really nice.
Yep.
And we've done this a couple of times, right? We be going on live, and we're talking, and then we forget to turn the microphone on. Like, we can't hear you.
Everyone's
Oh,
like,
I gotta fix the
hey.
audio.
Yeah.
Let me just type this out for you.
Yep.
So having good audio makes a big difference because it helps the algorithms. It helps Facebook and YouTube to auto transcribe
Yeah.
and caption based on the audio, right?
Yep.
And the beautiful part, high quality audio actually makes you sound smarter. Did you know that?
There's no
People,
downside. Yeah.
right?
If you're gonna make one change to your studio right now, I seriously consider getting a better microphone. And it doesn't have to be the most expensive. We
No.
have a Shure SM7B. here in the studio. And I really just like the MV7 because I do
Yes.
usually pretty simple setups. It plugs
Hmm.
directly USB into my computer and it
Exactly.
works great every time. So I think, yeah, having a good understanding of it, but even something smaller and cheaper is also fine. I can't remember. I never remember the exact name of it, but I have a tiny Shure mic, but and it's like a purse mic. Literally, it's so small. You can throw it in your bag, and it worked great for years. And I still use it at home a lot. The kids use
Yeah,
it sometimes for like Zoom calls and things that they're doing for school. Yeah, but yeah, one small improvement up from just using your built-in sound can make a big difference.
absolutely, absolutely. And they actually did a study where people rated a physicist's talk as 19.3% better when they listened to it in high quality versus low. They also thought that he was smarter and liked him more. Because here's the funny part: when you, who are
Crazy.
you going to pay attention to? Somebody who sounds clean and good, or somebody who sounds like they're on the speakerphone?
Yeah,
It's not.
it is distracting. It's way more distracting than if their video is going in and out or if they're like slightly blurry or like any of the kind of it's way more distracting if any of the video is an issue because you can look elsewhere or kind of, be taking notes or looking down. But yeah, if there's weird background noise, that's hard to get. I feel like it's hard to wrap your head around as a viewer, as a
Yeah,
listener, because it's very noticeable for sure.
100%.
I
And
have
then
a,
the last,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, go for it.
No, go. Let's finish this thought,
Yeah.
and then we have a couple
So
questions.
the fourth number is one, two, three, four number is the camera.
Hmm.
It could be anything: DSLR, mirrorless, webcam, smartphone, and then personalizing that background, because having a personalized background
Yeah, you're
again
set. Yeah.
makes that connection.
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys watching have seen people like Mary Lou Mandel is a really great example of this. She has like the most simple background. So if you're sitting there and you're
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, easy for you guys to say, you're in a bigger space, you have like cool lighting and like fun backgrounds and bookcases and all that stuff. If you can't make that work in your space or you're in a really small space, there are tons of other options. She literally has a white wall and she bought two like fairly affordable lights on I think Amazon, and she just
Yep, the
has them pointed
$15.
against the wall, and it makes this like kind of pink and purple background. She can
Hmm.
obviously change the colors to whatever she wants, but all of
Yeah.
her videos have that look. It looks like a custom background that she's made, and
Hmm.
it's added that really personalized and unique style, and it was as simple as like a white wall
Yeah.
in her apartment, that so because she wasn't able to put a lot of stuff in that space, and it really has
Yeah.
helped to define her videos. So there's that could mean anything, so don't feel like you need to spend a ton or build out an entire huge backdrop space. I think there's a lot of options out
Exactly.
there.
Just start small, get
Yeah,
that practice in, and as you're going, you're like, okay, I can add this here, and I can add, just slowly build it up.
yeah,
But if,
yeah,
yes,
for
you could be spending 10, 20K in your studio,
sure.
but if you don't
Easily.
have a story to tell, my friend,
You're not going to get that money back.
you're not gonna get that money
You're
back. No,
not going to get
let's
that
just
money
bring it back.
back. You'll look amazing, but you're not going to get that money back. All right, I have a couple
Yeah.
questions I'm going to scroll through.
All right.
What about overlays? Yeah, that's a great question. So overlays in Ecamm, at least specifically, you can do a lot with. So what I'm using here now, this is literally just a like a background using our logo that we created in Canva within
Yep.
minutes. We have lots of different kinds of backgrounds that you can create yourself in a variety of different
Mhm.
software. You can hire a designer to create. You can drop in different background colors, etc. Ecamm actually has an entire overlay section called text overlays, which I know doesn't sound like graphics, but I would challenge you to pop into our community. We'll drop the link in the description if you don't have it already. Anna and Fulgens, who run our Ecamm network news and a program called Building Blocks, they build entire like television quality
Oh
graphics
yeah.
using text overlays in Ecamm.
Oh yes.
It takes a little bit more time, but once you get it, I think it's one of those things where you really could create just about anything. And
Hmm.
really thinking kind of content first, how you can approach, really thinking through what you
Absolutely.
want to say. What kind of graphics do you use in your studio?
So I have a few different layouts that I'll do for the different shows that I might be running on. So if I'm doing the Hacks and Hobbies show, I can pull up my little background. So I've got little uh, logos, little names, stuff like that. And if I'm with a guest, and I can have different layouts, stuff like that laid
Yeah, it
up.
looks great.
And if I'm doing another show, so I've got different layouts for different shows. So here's another one, another
Perfect.
Junaid. But again, it's all comes down to, hey, what do I want to show? What kind of message is that going to, how am I portraying my brand up there and putting all of that together?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot you can do with graphics, but like anything else, it's one of those things that you want to think content
Yep.
first and then level up as you figure out what your needs are. Are you bringing on a
Yeah.
guest? Do you need to share something or show something? How are you demonstrating all of that content? But that's a
There's
great question.
so many variables. Yeah. There's so many variables.
Scrolling through, there's so many great questions. A couple people are asking where your main camera is, the one that's pointing at you right now.
That's a great question. So let me show you where my main camera is. So my main camera is actually sitting behind this glass mirror. It's a EOS R, so sitting behind this package over here. And what that lets me do is I can look directly in the camera's direction. The camera doesn't, I don't need to see the camera, but as long as I can be looking in that same direction, the camera catches me and goes through. So this is my little teleprompter window that shows me what I'm looking at. Now I'm having that eye to eye contact.
I
So that's the main
absolutely
camera.
love the like movement. Is that your slider that's doing that? That's so fun.
That's my little slider in the background. It's a nice, from a Rhino camera gear,
Yeah.
42-inch slider, just goes back and forth.
It does.
And
I
what's
mean,
funny is
it makes it look really professional. I can see how all of us are suffering from needing new gear because it
from
is
gas right now.
cool. Yeah, you see it and you're like, oh my goodness,
What's
that looks so
what's
cool.
funny, when I first started, it was just sitting here because I got it off Kickstarter, and back in 2018,
Hmm.
never got around to using it. I think maybe I used it once or twice, but it was sitting here for the longest time, and I'm looking at it, and as I'm setting my studio, it's like maybe I can use that somehow. And then I, of course, put it into gear, and then people are like, "Oh my god, how are you getting that?" Like, oh, it's a slider that I had from, like, yeah, you just happened to had a slider that's $2,500. Like,
You're like, yeah, I did. I
you
don't know what
kind
to
of
tell
did.
you. Yeah. Oh, I love it. Yeah, Kickstarter. It's worth keeping an eye on like some of the cool
Oh
new
my
stuff
god.
that's coming out, especially if you have a channel that has, I mean, even if you don't have a crazy amount of subscribers or followers. Yeah,
Right,
right. There's
exactly.
another one of our favorite
Yep.
Kickstarted projects.
The
Shout
Sling
out to
Pod,
Pat Flynn
at
and the team
Flynn.
at Switch Pod.
Of course, just Cases by Moment, which was also
Yep.
Kickstarter.
Yep.
It's all Kickstarter family right here.
Yes, it's worth keeping an eye on because you never know. You might find something that's really fun and start something, or you might be able to work with the company and they'll send you, something to test out or to talk about on your channel
Exactly.
if you have
Yeah.
that kind of content. All
And
right, a
what's
lot of people asking about whiteboard. How are you whiteboarding for all
how
of
am I
us
whiteboarding? All right.
whiteboard
Do we
geeks?
go demo mode right now?
All right, let's do it.
All right. So here's my whiteboard. If I turn off the green screen, you just see the green screen. So all it is, I'm bringing in iPad that's connected over. Guess what? I can do overhead cam right now. So you can see here's my iPad connected to uh,
Yep.
the
Hmm.
cable directly to the computer, and then I've got my whiteboard with a green screen in here. So when I bring into my scene, I can say, hey, this camera has a green screen on, and let's turn on the transparency because if I have the transparency turned off, then I'm running on that Ecamm wall over here.
I love
So
which.
turn on,
Hey, you know what? You could be writing on the
right.
castle wall.
You could be writing on that wall. Why not? It looks pretty awesome, right?
Oh, I love it.
Yep.
I
So it's very
love it.
simple, and it's all built into Ecamm. So you can just bring in your iPad,
Yep.
use your pencil, and I think the mini and the iPad, the regular iPad and iPad Pro, all of that have. There's actually a list that Apple puts out that lists all of the iPads that are compatible with the Pencil. So you can say, oh, I don't want to go all out and spend $700. I could just start with the lowest common denominator and start
Yeah.
using that one.
Pencil has been on my list. Speaking of speaking of wish lists, that's probably why my writing looks terrible. It's like my fat finger trying to
Oh, yeah,
trying
writing
to
with
make
the
it
okay, that yeah, yeah.
go.
Yeah, yeah, I'm using the Pencil, so that's what
Yeah.
makes it easier to, create the
Definitely.
clean
Definitely. But
writing.
yeah, if you're a course creator or you're doing, a community workshop or any of that kind of stuff, having the whiteboard really it looks cool, particularly if you're doing anything in like Zoom where they're not expecting you to show up with something like that. I mean, the amount
Yeah,
of times where you'll get those questions where they're like, "How are you doing that? What are you using? We're in Zoom. I don't understand." So yeah, some of that is always fun to kind of dazzle people with. Steve wants to
exactly.
know if you're using different profiles in Ecamm. That's a newer feature. Have you tested that out? Played with it?
I have not played with profiles yet, but that's going to be the next on the list on how to use a profile. But I am using the A10 Mini and a Stream Deck together, so I can switch between the Ecamm screens using Stream Deck, and then I can switch between my different cameras using the A10 Mini. So again, my second, I'm so disappointed on this guy right now,
It happens.
but but yes, I'm using both devices. The reason I went with that is because when I'm creating videos for YouTube, I want to be able to record them really fast. And I know that Ecamm can do an excellent job, but I like to have like hot. Sometimes I might not switch to the right uh,
Yeah.
scene, and I was like, "Oh crap! I wanted to get the other shot.
Yeah.
Do I retake?" So the A10 Mini Pro ISO that I'm using records 4 feeds of video, all individual videos
Yeah.
directly onto an external hard drive.
Yep.
So I record on Ecamm and the A10 Mini, and then I bring them together in Final Cut
Mhm.
Pro, and then I can switch between the cameras and pick the perfect, choreography between the different camera angles.
No, that's a really good point. I mean, if you're creating, a lot of different, if you're doing a mix of live stream broadcast, but also leveraging all of that video content, having all of the different
Yeah,
angled shots, and having more video to play with, and really be able to produce a really professional looking video in the end is great. Yeah,
exactly.
Ecamm has the audio side, but we don't have the video side yet. We've had
I
had a
can't
lot of
wait for it
asks for it. I know.
because what would be cool with the video side is, let's say I have 4 guests coming in,
Yep.
and if they're not on screen, but I still wanted to record their reaction,
Reactions. Yeah.
because and then by the time they had the reaction and bring them on screen, I've already kind of missed it.
Yep.
But if I was recording those in ISO,
Yeah,
it would
I know,
change
right?
everything.
Get those feature requests in. Get
I know, right?
ahead of 4.0. I love it. Yeah, and I will say, Steve, that I've been so unsurprisingly, I've been using profiles and playing around with them. I was saying before we jumped on that if you saw my list of profiles right now, it would be shocking because it's just like new profile, like none of them are named and it's all a bit of a mess. But it is a really nice way to organize your content once you get it all set up and be able to kind of switch back and forth if you're doing a lot of different kinds of projects. One of the things I think is really cool about it is that you
Yeah.
can actually export it and send it off to someone else. So that
Oh, that's
opens
the
up a
best.
bunch of different options there. If you have a team, and you're like, okay, here are all of here's what the show is going to look like tomorrow. I'm sending it along and they're running
Right.
the show for you. Or if you're like us in the Ecamm community and you're like, how did you do that blah 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 thing, you can now send profiles back and forth to each other,
Nice.
so that
What
you
I've
can
been doing,
test and play around.
yeah, yeah, what I've been doing in the previous version is you could still create folders
Yep.
in your scenes,
Yep.
right? So you can drag that folder out. So
Yep.
when I was helping my friend in UK,
Hmm.
I saved the profile, I zipped it up, and I put
Yep.
it up on Google Drive. So then we had a Zoom call. I logged into her computer. She shared her screen. I downloaded that file, loaded up the Ecamm. Like, all right, you ready to go?
Magic.
She's like, wow, that was so quick. I'm like, yes. I spent the time on my side, so that when you're on a call,
Yeah.
I can quickly get them running and move.
Yeah. It's amazing. The one thing I will say to watch out for with profiles that we're still kind of playing and figuring out how people are using them, but it does pull in some of your settings. So obviously nothing that's password protected or any kind of privacy issue. But
Right.
if you have like virtual camera turned on, it's going to automatically turn the virtual camera on in, you know, in the account that you're sending it over to. So just a couple things to
Nice.
watch as you're prepping to send. If you're prepping to send over a profile, you might want to just go back to some of those defaults so that you're not changing people's settings or preferences. And we'll
Absolutely.
figure out ways
Absolutely.
around that as well. Looks like Steve says he's using different profiles and aligning his Stream Deck with each profile. That's
Ooh,
awesome. I love that.
that's really neat. I
Yeah.
gotta play more with it. I've been
Amazing.
so busy in the hardware things, like setting up the stage, that I haven't
Yep.
spent too much time in the software, but I make sure that I have the latest version
Yeah.
and all the cool things that come with it. For example, being able to, so let me go to this camera or this camera, being able to control the corner radius. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
I could do that now directly in here.
Squirkles.
So that's made, those are some really nice comings. Or for example, if I were to,
Borders, all the borders too. Get rid of
do the
that.
borders on even like
Oh,
stuff
look
that
at that. It looks awesome.
so this is the software that I use to tell people, okay, so let's look at from the top. So here's the different rooms layouts that I'll create for them, and
This
let me
is
zoom
so
in.
cool. The visual makes such a difference. I think most of us are
Does
more
yeah,
visually
it's
minded than
just,
we realize too. So yeah, having the different
oh my
layouts.
god, yeah.
All right, we'll have to talk
So
because I have some.
for
I
the
have
same
some.
room, for the same room, you can have three different layouts. Like, oh, room one, from the top, room two from the top. I guess I don't have them set up right.
I
But
love
again,
it.
it just makes life so much easier.
Yeah.
And so I had done Zoom for a friend of mine, and she was like, "Oh, perfect! I need to set up the cameras here, 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 and then
Yep.
boom, what we're done." Makes life so much easier.
Oh my goodness. That is so incredibly cool. All right. Well, I want to be sensitive to time as we're nearing the top of the hour,
Yes,
but let everyone who is watching now and in replay know where to find you if they want to reach out to you to learn more about setting up their studio with you. How do they go about doing that?
absolutely. So you can head on over to homestudiomastery.com,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that's where I talk about the home studio. You can see all the things that I get offered, and I'm also working on a course around that, so that'd be fun.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we will definitely continue to update everyone on that because I know it continues, especially in this like holiday buying season, continues to be a really
Exactly.
popular topic. But yeah, think through. I think, as usual, the most important genius things that everyone has been saying to us are that content and understanding what you were trying to accomplish first, really
Yeah.
knowing what space you have to play with and really like thinking that space through, drawing it out, really figuring that part out, growing with your content. And
Hmm.
yeah, just, really, I think being able to think through, what you have, what you might need, what goes on the wish list, what goes on the must buy list, kind of thinking through all of those different levels is going to be really important. It's
Exactly.
easy. It's
Yep.
easy to get overwhelmed. It's easy to get
It
overwhelmed.
is.
It's easy
It's
to
so
get,
easy to get overwhelmed. Yeah.
it's easy to spend a
So
lot. So yeah.
keep in mind, what's the end product you're trying to get to, and then work towards it little by little. Get that practice in. I tell everybody, you got to practice to talk to the camera, practice talking to people. Like jump on Zoom calls and just have a conversation.
Yeah.
And I think the Ecamm community has been doing that, or was it
Yeah.
on Let's Get Live, right? Doing
Yeah.
those work sessions and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. So even if you're sitting there and you're like, I hate my space and I'm not ready yet, and I don't really, I'm not ready to show up yet. We've been doing what we're calling Ecamm Fam Jam. So if you're in our
Hmm.
community and it's literally just a Zoom call, so no worries, we're not recording it, it's not going out anywhere. But yeah, get on camera in front of some folks, work alongside us, ask questions. It's a really good time to just kind of be in a virtual space with others to ask some questions and
Yeah.
share what you have. You can always do test streams as well into the Ecamm community. no, it's a safe space. Everyone is at
It
different
is,
levels.
yeah,
No one's gonna call out that your studio isn't looking perfect yet, or that likely they're just gonna
exactly.
have questions along the way. So yeah, well, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time. I know I sprang this on you last minute, so I just really appreciate you are so
No,
kind
thank you
in
so much,
sharing
Katie.
everything with us. And yeah, I hope you have an
It was
absolutely
fun.
fantastic week. Thanks so much for joining
You
us.
too.
Thanks,
All
everyone.
right, take care.
Bye.